Well, listen, I mean, people follow me on Twitter. They would have seen a short little thread I put out after Kyle won, and I said, I hate it just as much as the next guy, and I don't. I, I have very mixed feelings about it because I try to separate. There's that old saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. So in this case, I think I would turn it around and say, don't hate Kyle Busch for doing it, hate NASCAR for the rules that allow him to do it. And when you look at his stats, and Xfinity's the same way too. Of course, he wasn't in Xfinity last year. He won all 5 of his starts in 2021. He's already not going to be able to do that again this year because he was 4th in the Xfinity race this weekend, and we'll get into that a little bit later on when Casey joins the show here. But I do think it's doing a little bit of a disservice when we say there's zero impressive. It's not impressive at all. I
It
think
is. Yeah, yeah.
when you look at the quality of the Xfinity and truck fields, we got to keep in mind, we not only do we have some of the top prospects in the sport who are knocking on the door of a cup ride, we also have past series champions in there. We have veterans who maybe for whatever reason, whether it's funding or just lack of open seats, kind of got shuffled out of a cup opportunity, or they want to be in a competitive Xfinity or truck ride as opposed to a backmarker cup team. So, I think when you look at Kyle's resume in the truck series in particular, I think he's won something like 14 of his last 25 and been in the top 221 of his last 25 truck series starts. I mean, these are vehicles that, obviously it's still NASCAR, it's still the same tracks, but, especially with a new next gen car, these trucks drive completely differently from the cup cars, and to be able to jump in a lot of times without practicing qualifying and still have a win record like that, I don't want to take away from Kyle's skill set. He's obviously an all-time great, but it's the principle of allowing a driver to go back down the ladder. And again, I understand that, it's not an apples to oranges comparison with F2 and F3 because we do have some veterans in those series as well. But, like we said, you never see in any other sport a athlete or a driver going back down to the minor leagues or to the feeder series to mess around on Saturday before they get into their day job on Sunday. So we've had this debate before on the show. It's a debate that I don't think is ever going to go away. I think we're pretty much at the point where what we have now is the way it's going to be. I know it's certainly better than it was 10, 15 years ago when I was just starting to get into the sport and watch it every weekend. I still remember the first Busch race I ever watched. Back then, the Xfinity Series was the Busch Series, ironically. You think of the man that's dominated it for so many years. 26 Cup drivers were in that race at Las Vegas, and to only have, be down to 2 or 3, at the beginning parts of the year because they're not allowed to run the playoff races even anymore. I think it's a good compromise because I know that there are passionate fans on either side of the argument. But again, I would, to the people who are on the side that we're not on, who endorse it and support it, I would ask, where else do you see this in professional sports? It's really kind of unprecedented. And again, I understand that there are business aspects to it as well, but I think it's, you can see it. It definitely has its drawbacks as well.
Yeah, it definitely does as well because it's sort of like we don't want to take away from the talent because, as you said, it is the complete talent of Kyle Busch to get in the car and wring every single ounce of power out of it and get these race wins. But for a brand image, it's damaging. Do you remember when Fernando Alonso came over to IndyCar for the 500, the first time he did it? And he was able to lead so many laps as well. He was fast straight away. He came back to Formula One, and all the Formula One drivers were saying, well, I guess that shows how easy IndyCar is and how not competitive it is and how we as Formula One drivers just hop over there and we'll be instantly quick. And it's that type of damagement of image to the brand that you've got to think of as well. If a Cup Series driver can just come in and mince out everything that happens there, it's the damage of the brand. No mention of the talent that Alonso had when he ran the 500, the backing he had, the amount of testing he packed in as well, the amount of physical training he had to do as well to go from a powered steering car to a non-powered steering car. First everyone on an oval, everything that was all gone. The single image was, oh well, F1 driver goes over, beats Americans in their own series as well. How hard can it be? And that's the thing. That's the image brand that's getting damaged here. Was the fact is that he's able to go from the top tier of the triangle to the bottom, the third tier of the triangle, and be so dominant. It's an image problem that they need to fix.
And I think that, I don't know that all that criticism of IndyCar was necessarily warranted. Like, I think Lewis
Yeah, it
Hamilton got in
wasn't. Yeah.
some hot water because he was, which was kind of ironic, because later he won the race in Japan, and Takuma Sato was doing the podium interviews that year.
That
But I
race,
think
yeah, I
that,
remember. I'd say, yeah.
yeah, there was, yeah, I think again, that goes back to what we talked about earlier with the crossover between disciplines. For IndyCar isn't necessarily a step down from Formula One. It's a different series. It's got some similarities. It's not completely different, like some other series might be, but at the same time, it is clearly it clearly has its own identity. The race on ovals, obviously, Formula One doesn't do that, so it's clearly its own thing. Whereas, the Truck Series has several companion dates with NASCAR Cup, and so does the Xfinity Series, and a lot of times drivers use it as a development ladder, especially on the Xfinity side of things. So I think, like you're saying, Josh, that branding identity that you see there, and the image that gets damaged by that, I think that it's 10 times that over on NASCAR, because the series are so closely aligned with each other.